The first time anyone called Ilara the wrong choice, she was 8 years old. It was at a harvest festival, beneath strings of golden lanterns and laughter that felt just out of reach. Her younger sister, Lyra, danced in the center of the square, spinning like sunlight itself, her bright dress catching every eye, every smile, every whispered admiration. Ilara stood at the edge, hands folded neatly, her plain blue gown forgotten by everyone but her. "She's beautiful," someone said of Lyra. "And the other one?" another voice asked quietly. A pause, then a shrug. "The wrong choice." Ilara heard it. She always did, but she smiled anyway, because she had learned early that some people shine like stars, and others are meant to hold the sky together. Years passed and the girls grew into women. Lyra became everything the world adored. Graceful, radiant, charming. When she entered a room, conversations paused, heads turned, doors opened. She was laughter, music, light. Ilara became something quieter. She cared for their aging mother when illness took her strength. She kept their modest home warm through winters that seemed determined to break them. She knew the names of every villager, every child who needed bread, every widow who needed company. But kindness, unlike beauty, is rarely celebrated out loud. Their father, once a proud merchant, had fallen on hard times. Debts crept in like shadows, and hope became something fragile, easily broken. So when news arrived that the Duke himself would visit their town seeking a bride, it felt like a miracle wrapped in desperation. "This is our chance," their father said, his voice tight with urgency. "Our only chance." He looked at Lyra, then briefly, almost reluctantly, at Ilara. "Prepare yourselves." The Duke's arrival transformed the town overnight. Banners unfurled, streets were cleaned, people dressed in their finest, as if hope itself were walking among them. Ilara stood beside her sister as they waited in the grand hall, her hands trembling just slightly, not from excitement, but from knowing how this would go. It had always gone this way. Lyra stepped forward when the Duke entered, and for a moment, even Ilara forgot to breathe. He wasn't what she expected. He wasn't dazzling or arrogant. He didn't stride with the confidence of someone who owned the world. He looked tired, not weak, not broken, just tired in a way that suggested he had seen too much of the world and found it lacking. His eyes moved across the room, polite but distant, until they landed on Lyra. A flicker of recognition, of expectation, passed through them. Of course. Sink inside her. Not pain, just familiarity. This was how stories went. Their father stepped forward quickly, his voice eager. "My lord," he said, bowing deeply, "it is an honor beyond words. Allow me to present my daughters." He gestured toward Lyra, with pride that burned like a flame. "This is Lyra, graceful, kind, admired by all." Lyra curtsied, her smile flawless. Then, almost as an afterthought, he gestured toward Ilara. "And this is Ilara. No description, no praise, just a name." Then came the words that would echo long after the moment had passed. "If it pleases you, my lord, take the pretty one." The room fell silent. Even Lyra's smile flickered. Ilara felt her chest tighten, but she kept her head high. She had learned long ago how to stand quietly in the shadow of expectation. The Duke didn't respond immediately. He studied Lyra. Then he turned his gaze to Ilara. And everything changed. "Tell me," the Duke said softly, stepping closer. Not to Lyra, but to Ilara. "What do you see when you look at this room?" The question startled her. No one had ever asked her what she saw. She hesitated, then answered honestly. "I see people trying very hard to be what they think you want," she said. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The Duke's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened. "And what do you think I want?" Ilara met his gaze. "I think you're tired of being offered perfection that doesn't feel real." Silence. Her father shifted uncomfortably. Lyra looked confused, but the Duke, for the first time since he arrived, he smiled. The decision came quickly. Shockingly quickly. "I will marry her," the Duke said. Gasps filled the hall. Their father froze. "My lord, surely you misunderstood." "I did not," the Duke replied calmly. He turned to Ilara. "If you are willing." Elara felt the world tilt beneath her feet. This wasn't how the story was supposed to go. She looked at Lyra. For the first time in her life, her sister didn't look admired. She looked uncertain, afraid even, and something inside Elara softened. "I will," she said quietly. The journey to the Duke's estate felt like stepping into another life. Grand halls, endless gardens, servants who bowed to her, but none of it mattered. Because Elara quickly realized something no one else seemed to notice. The Duke wasn't just tired. He was lonely. Not the kind of loneliness that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes from being surrounded by people who never truly see you. At dinner, nobles praised him without sincerity. Advisors agreed with him without thought. Guests smiled without warmth. Everything was perfect, and nothing was real. Weeks passed. Elara didn't try to impress anyone. She didn't change her voice or her habits or her quiet way of observing the world. Instead, she did what she had always done. She listened. She learned the names of servants others ignored. She noticed when someone was struggling, she thanked people not out of obligation but out of genuine appreciation. At first, people were confused. Then, something began to shift. The kitchen grew warmer, not from the fires but from laughter. Servants stood a little taller. Even the guards at the gate smiled more often. Kindness, Elara discovered, was contagious. One evening, she found the Duke alone in the gardens. "You've changed this place," he said, not looking at her. "I haven't done anything," she replied. "You've seen people," he said, "and when people are seen, they become more than they were." He turned to her. "Why?" The question lingered between them. "Why be kind?" he clarified, "when the world has given you so little in return?" Elara thought for a moment, then she smiled gently. "Because kindness isn't a transaction," she said. "It's a choice." The true test came in winter. A harsh storm swept through the region, leaving nearby villages in ruin. Crops were destroyed, homes collapsed, families were left with nothing. The Duke's advisors urged caution. "We must protect our resources," they said. "We cannot risk everything." It was the logical choice, the safe choice, the expected choice. But Elara remembered something her mother once told her. The measure of who we are isn't what we keep, it's what we give when it costs us something. She stood before the Duke, her voice steady. "Let them come," she said. "Open the gates, share what we have." "It could leave us vulnerable," he replied. "It could," she agreed, "but it could also save lives." The decision weighed heavily. For hours, the Duke said nothing. Then finally, "Open the gates." What followed changed everything. Families poured in, cold, hungry, desperate, and instead of turning them away, the estate became a sanctuary. Elara worked alongside the servants, distributing food, comforting children, helping rebuild what had been lost. She didn't act like a duchess. She acted like someone who cared. And the Duke, for the first time in years, felt something he hadn't expected: pride. Not in his wealth or his title, but in the woman who stood beside him. Months later, when spring returned, so did something else: hope. The villages recovered. Crops grew again. Laughter returned. And with it came stories. Stories of a duchess who chose compassion over comfort. Stories of a duke who listened. Stories of a place where people mattered more than appearances. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the Duke turned to Elara. "Do you ever wish," he asked quietly, "that I had chosen differently?" She smiled. "No," she said, "because you didn't choose the wrong sister." And he shook his head gently. "No," he replied, "I chose the one who sees the world not as it is, but as it could be." Years later, when people spoke of their story, they rarely mentioned beauty. They didn't talk about gowns or appearances or expectations. They spoke of something else, something deeper. They spoke of a woman who had spent her life being overlooked, and how in the end she became the one who helped others feel seen. Because sometimes the world tells you you're the wrong choice. Too quiet, too plain, too different. But the truth is, the right hearts don't look for perfection. They look for authenticity, for kindness, for someone who chooses to care, even when it's easier not to. And sometimes, the one everyone overlooks is the one who changes everything.